everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Welcome to your reading lesson for Tuesday. Today, we are going to begin talking about the different types of conflicts that characters can experience in their fiction books. So I hope you are ready to dive in. Start off by talking about what a conflict is. I guarantee you everyone's heard of the word conflict before. Conflict is just another word for a problem or an issue. I think right now, if we were in class, we could probably all shout out different conflicts that we as humans have experienced. And guess what? Our quote unquote humans in our stories also experience conflict. So, in fiction stories, there are 4 different types of conflict that characters can face throughout their story. The 4 being character versus character, character versus self, character versus nature, and character versus society. So I'm going to break each one of these down for you, don't worry. But I just want you to understand that conflict, those problems and those issues, they drive and direct the plot of a story. Remember, the plot is simply the sequence of events of a story. These problems and conflict add tension and drama and action, urgency, and character development, meaning characters learn from these problems. Guys, if our characters didn't experience any kinds of problems, the books would be so boring we would never finish them. So thanks to these 4 different types of conflict, it keeps that book going, the drama, the action. It makes us as readers continue to read the book. So let's dive into our first type of conflict, which is character versus character. So guys, character versus character is when a character is having a problem with another character. Like, it's exactly what it says. When there is a character who's having issues or problems with another character in the book, okay? Here's an example. My grandma's so strict. I want to sleep over at my friend's house on Friday, but she won't give me permission. This is an example because the narrator speaking, is having a problem with her grandma because she won't let her go sleep over. Character versus character is one of the easiest ones to identify in stories because if there are 2 different characters having problems, that is a character versus character conflict. Number 2. Character versus self. It is when a character is having a problem or conflict with themselves. That means when a character is facing decisions or they have to make a big choice and they're kind of doing an internal battle, meaning inside, we all have our little voices in our heads, right? Those little voices that tell us right and wrong, and we work through situations in our head. That is what character versus self is when the character is having that internal voice and they're having a problem with it. They don't know what to do. Here's an example. Stephen notices that the new student at school has the same band sticker on his notebook as he does. He wants to introduce himself and become friends, but he can't seem to work up the nerve. So this character, Stephen, is just feeling that nervousness inside of him. No one else sees this conflict but himself. That's where the character versus self comes in. It can be herself or himself. With this one, Stephen is struggling to work up the nerve. He's nervous to go talk to that new student. So once again, character versus self is when they're having a problem or conflict within themselves and they have to make a choice. The third one is character versus nature. So it's exactly what you think. When I think of nature, I think of outside. Guess what? That's kind of what it is. So character versus nature is when a character is having a problem or conflict with something in nature. That can mean it's raining outside, it's snowing outside. Nature is causing a problem for this character. It's stopping them. It's making it, you don't know if they're going to survive the cold winter. It's all the things that come from nature. And here's an example. Praven is on a hike when it suddenly starts to rain heavily, making the path muddy and slick. He slips in a puddle and twists his ankle. So the problem here is Praven versus all the rain, which caused it to be muddy and slick. So that is what an example of character versus nature is. So think nature, think anything that is happening outside that the character has no control over. Sadly, characters can't be like, stop raining, and it magically stops raining. No, it is some nature, they cannot control it. So just think of nature outside. What are things that could possibly, from nature, cause a problem? And the final type of conflict is character versus society. Okay, this one's the trickiest of them all. Character versus society. So It is when a character is having a problem or a conflict with society. Guys, society is the world in which we live in. Okay? It is the world in which we live. But the one thing you have to think about is what world is your character living in? Okay? They are not following the rules or fitting in with what society considers normal. Okay, so when you think of this, we could think of character versus society in today's world because we all are living in today's world. But if we're thinking to Tolliver's Secret, that's taking place during the American Revolution. Society was a whole lot different back then. Girls and boys' rules were different. Just the way they lived was different. So this is when you got to think about what was the world like during that time, and is this character having any issues with fitting in or following the rules that their world at the time considered normal? Here's an example. Heather's school has a great basketball team for boys. When she and a group of female friends want to start a girls' basketball team, the school board says it's a nice idea, but there just isn't enough money in the athletic budget. Meaning, Heather wants to start a girls' basketball team, but there's a problem because they don't have the money. So it's a problem against her and what the school board says. That is society, what is happening in her world. So these are the 4 different types of conflict you will see in fiction stories. Just one more time because this is all brand new to you guys. There are 4 different types of conflicts that characters can come in contact with during stories. The first one being character versus character, when the character is having a problem or an issue with another character in the book. The second one is character versus self, when that character is having an internal battle. So they're having to decide the difference between right and wrong, what should they do in a situation. The third one is character versus nature, when something outside or out of their control is a problem to them or causing a problem. And the last one be character versus society, when it's a character essentially having a problem with the world that they are living in. So let's see some examples of these. Okay, guys, we're going to get started with some familiar examples just so you can kind of wrap your head around this character conflict a little bit better. Let's start with character versus character. This is obviously Woody and Buzz. They are from Toy Story, and yes, you think if you've seen the most recent one, they're best friends, Miss Char. What's their problem? Think back to the first movie. When Buzz was introduced to Andy's room, things were not so good between the two of them. They despised each other. They had conflicts throughout literally the entire first movie. They had problems. Woody didn't like Buzz. Buzz didn't like Woody. They were constantly having issues. So this is a great example from the first Toy Story of character versus character. The next one being character versus self. Now, I know Rafiki's in this picture, but we're looking specifically at, this is older Simba. So you guys know Lion King, he has ran away from his home because he thought he killed his father. But this is when he has that moment and he has to decide. His homeland is destroyed and they're dying, and he has to decide within himself, do I go back and help my people, or do I stay out here in the jungle and acting like nothing is going on? This is a great example of a character having to decide within themselves what they should do. The next one is character versus nature, and this one is, I've got 2 examples for you. So the top left one that's moving is Moana, and her character versus nature conflict is when she's going out into the water, into the unknown. She comes across so many different things that try to stop her. And that is an example of character versus nature. And then you have down here at the bottom is when Marlin and Dory all of a sudden swim across these jellyfish. And these jellyfish are there. They cannot control them. And the problem is they have to somehow get out without being stung. So once again, these are 2 examples of nature, things that cannot be controlled that cause problems. And our final one is character versus society. If you have not seen this movie is Mulan, and I highly recommend you go and watch it. So society in her world, this is a Chinese army, and women were not allowed to fight at all. If you don't know the story, I'll give you a quick synopsis. Her dad was very, very old, and he would not be able to fight. And so she, on the left side, she cuts her hair off, which is a disgrace to their society. And she pretends on the right to be a boy to fight in the army. And the problem is throughout the whole story, she is trying to make sure that her gender of being a female is not discovered. And so she has to decide that she's going to cut her hair off and go against what society says about women. So here are four, hopefully, examples that you were able to connect to with these different types of conflicts.